You're listening to the Back Porch Talk podcast. Danny and Jason had many discussions and debates on the back porch while making pivotal investment moves with assets. That's right, with trading cards. They welcome you to the back porch and right into those discussions about current sports news with a fresh and unique twist. So come on and join us. Welcome to the Back Porch Talk podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason.
Your co-host, Danny.
Fans, we got a full story for you today. First, NBA playoffs. And then some interesting Major League Baseball news today. A long time coming. But first, Danny, right into the NBA, where the Minnesota Timberwolves 105-100 against the Dallas Mavericks in Dallas on last night's game. Anthony Edwards close to a triple-double, 29 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists. Luka has a triple-double, 28 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists. Big Cat came to play, finally. Mm-hmm. He ends up being aggressive in the second half more so, especially in that third quarter. He ends up with 25 points, 5 rebounds, was in foul trouble, ends up fouling out. He's in foul trouble most of the night, fouls out. But I think what's to be said here is him being aggressive, especially in that third quarter when he shot the three-pointer and finally goes in. He ends up being 4 for 5 from three-point land. Anthony Edwards, like I said, had a good game. Rudy Gobert has 13 points, 10 rebounds, 39 minutes of play. Kyrie didn't have the greatest game. I mean, we're looking at 6 for 18 field goal percentage. That's 33%. 1 for 6 from three-point land, only 16 points. Luka, was doing Luka things. And that was it. I honestly believe that they missed Lively. Mm-hmm. They missed that active body presence down low. And so I just think that's something to continue to watch, especially in tomorrow night's game, if Lively is going to be able to play. I think it was the next spring. Mm-hmm. Luckily, it wasn't a concussion. I'm pretty certain that he went through concussion protocol based upon the knee to the back of the head in Game 3. But Danny, the Timberwolves pulled this game out. What say you about this game?
Like every other game, it was down to the wire. Because Minnesota could easily be up. They could have swept as much as Dallas is up 3-1. All these games came down to the end where Minnesota failed to execute and Dallas executed in the final minutes of the game. And I know we'll get to Boston and Indiana, but it's very similar. Margin of error is very thin. So it was good to see Minnesota actually pull out a game, especially seeing how they've been playing. And Cat finally showed up, like you said. He has some key three-pointers in the fourth. But the other thing, too, man, is you got to look at, if you watch Luka Doncic, and I know he was off last night, but you got to attack him on the offensive end. If I was watching him, he was like hobbling around. I'm like, why aren't they taking it at him to put him in foul trouble or something? Because he can't, mm-hmm. He's not his normal self because he has that knee injury. Mm-hmm. So take advantage of it. Anthony Edwards hit some big shots last night. And so it goes back to Minnesota. It's been a great series so far. I don't want to see it end tomorrow night. One, because I wanted to see Minnesota win the series. But two, it's just been a great series. Back and forth. All the games that went down to the end, so it's exciting to watch. It's been close every game, so it's nail biting and it's great playoff basketball.
It's been close every game, Danny. But I have to say this, man. What's been frustrating to me to watch in this series has been the lack of adjustments that Minnesota coaching staff they're not making. Rudy Gobert every playoff season gets exposed. I know. Last series with Minnesota in Denver, I was like, after seeing that type of defense in Game 2, mm-hmm. They could go all the way. I think you need a more agile big Rudy Gobert is not going to be able to go to the 3-point line and defend.
No, he's a rim protector.
Drop coverage is going to be his bread and butter, and their bread and butter, and it's getting exposed. Again, I think had Lively been there last night, this series would have been over. Am I kind of changing my mind here with Minnesota? Not just because, that Dallas is up 3-1, but just the lack of adjustments that the coaching staff of Minnesota frightens me if they go to the finals. I think Dallas is going to win. They're up 3-1. No team in NBA history, playoff history, has come back down 0-3.
And this is the series that could happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but with it going back to Minnesota and them winning in Dallas, and if Minnesota pulls this out tomorrow night, that puts a little doubt in Dallas's mind.
There's a whole lot of pressure on them.
Yeah, because Minnesota can win on the road. And they've already proved they've beaten Denver. How many times? They beat them, 3 times? In Denver.
Yep.
So they're not afraid of that. But I agree with you, man. It's how many times are we going to see Rudy Gobert on the 3-point line getting ate up on a pick and roll?
Toasted. Come on, man.
And Doncic, you're just feeding into Doncic's game because he's setting it up and then he can lob it because they're pulling Rudy Gobert from the rim protection.
I don't know how many dunks they have. They have so many dunks.
That's all Gafford is getting.
That's all he's getting, man. I mean, it's right for the taking.
Yes, but then you got to also credit Dallas, their game plan of knowing to pull Rudy Gobert out like that.
But see, that's been a game plan for every NBA playoff team over the past few years. To pull Rudy. I mean, the Clippers did that when Rudy was with Utah.
Yep.
And I think that actually would kind of force the trade. That's his defensive weakness, and he's supposed to be the defensive player of the year. I'll say this. We know the defensive player of the year award is a regular season award, so this show ain't a playoff award. And I think this is going to be his last time getting the defensive player of the year award. I like the Mavs, but I think Mavs going to have to wrap this up in Minnesota. I don't think if they come back to Dallas 3-2, I can see that going back to Minnesota for that 6th game, and that'll be a tough game to get. So yeah, they're gonna have to do this tomorrow night. Also on some NBA news, Danny, we had to acknowledge the passing of Bill Walton, age 71, who died of cancer. Bill Walton, obviously a UCLA standout champion, 1977 Portland Trail Blazers NBA champion, 1978 MVP, and 1986 Sixth Man of the Year awardee with the Boston Celtics, and also champion with the Boston Celtics. Also a broadcaster. There's been many times where I've listened to Bill Walton on the broadcast, and he is his own broadcaster, his own person. Definitely have personality, was beloved in the NBA circles, Hall of Famer, also 50th and 75th year a member of the team. So yeah, a loss in the NBA circles. Our condolences to the Walton family. And Danny, I would say it kind of made me think a little bit more about Bill Walton on the court and how everybody says that, he was exceptional. He was a very good player, man. I mean, very dominant. Injuries, his foot took hold of his career in the NBA. But man, looking at the highlights, and I do intend to watch one of the games there, UCLA, when they won a championship. I do intend to watch that. A great NBA player, and he will be missed by some, but missed by all from a broadcasting standpoint, because he always brought a little joy, a little laughter in his broadcast. What say you, Danny, about Bill Walton?
When we were growing up, that was like the injuries are really taking its toll on him when he went to the Boston Celtics. But when they won the championship, they beat Dr. J and George McGinnis in that squad, which Dr. J and them were up actually 2-0 in the series, which was that, 76, 77? So we didn't get to see him coming out of UCLA. We caught the tail end of it. It's kind of, if you remember, Arvydas Sabonis. We really didn't get to see him until, later in his career, once he had slowed down, and he followed Kareem at UCLA. They had, played for the great John Wooden. It's one of those things, and really, he really didn't say anything. I didn't know that he was sick. So it caught me by surprise and everything. But I would also, he was different, man, because he, like with the Pac-10, Pac-12 games on Saturday night, he brought a different flair to the games. And sometimes it was just, if you didn't really understand his style, it could be rough. But it's one of those things too, with his passing, the Pac-12 disbanding, it's kind of ironic in a way. But no, man, condolences to his family.
And now, Danny, on to this next topic in Major League Baseball, and where now the Negro League statistics are going to be incorporated into the Major League Baseball record books. And in doing so, there's going to be a whole lot of changes in terms of stats. One change in particular, Josh Gibson, he now becomes the baseball's career leader in batting average of 372, which actually surpasses Ty Cobb's 367. So there's just a lot of statistics that's going to change here. Gibson's 466 batting average in 1943 with the Homestead Grays to additional hits, if you will, for even Willie Mays. And Willie Mays actually gained a few hits there. I mean, Jackie Robinson, he's credited with 49 hits, an additional 49 hits with 1945 Kansas City Monarchs. So that increased his total to 1,567 hits. Satchel Paige, he gained 28 wins, raising his total to 125, which I believe he pitched way more than that in Negro League. So there's going to be some, I think, additional scrubbing of this data. I don't think this is going to be the last time we hear of changes to statistics and everything. I think this is going to open up a whole lot of discussions. I mean, you remember back in the day when we were collecting cards and everything, and one of the things that we always try to find is an error in a card.
Yep.
Because an error in a card means, oh, you have something that's very unique. Therefore, it's a little bit more valuable. So you have an error card, it's a little bit more valuable. All these times that things have been printed off, whether it's Ty Cobb, best batting average in Major League Baseball history, that's an error. What's going to happen from that step? So I think there's going to be just a whole lot of questions that needs to be answered and needs to be addressed. But bottom line, this was long overdue. This should have been done a long time ago. The history books are going to be different, and for a good reason, because the statistics of the Negro League should have been well incorporated into Major League Baseball. And long overdue. What say you, Danny, about the news of the Negro League Baseball statistics being incorporated to Major League Baseball?
It caught me off guard at first, Jason, to be honest with you, because I didn't realize there was, now reading some of the articles on it, there was a team dedicated to going through and understanding the record books, the statistics, analyzing the data and what they had. It sounds like, too, with this, that like Hall of Fame or anything that's posted may not be changed or acknowledged based on these changes. But I think too, it's one of those things that it is a part of the history. And it's something that these players are talked about, but they never got this type of recognition. And it's something that was, like you said, was long overdue. And a lot of the players that transitioned to the Negro Leagues over to the major leagues, those stats are following them, which that's part of their career. So it's going to generate a lot of discussion because I think of all sports, I look at baseball as the one that generates the most dialogue around statistics. And, you know, with the steroid era and some of these other things that have been blimps across, you know, over the history. So there's always discussion on statistics with baseball, and this just adds to it, adds to the complexity of it. Kind of see too, just bring it to the forefront of what these players did. Because you can dig it up to a certain extent, but now it'll be on full display. And we can see how great some of these players were that weren't recognized. Well, they were in certain senses, but now it'll bring more spotlight on them, like a Josh Gibson, for example. And even just the history of like Willie Mays and some of the teams, even the teams too. So not just the players themselves, but the teams that existed during this time and what they represented and who some of these players played with and what that all looks like. So it's going to be a lot to unpack because there's a lot of history there. I'm just looking forward to how this all plays out.
And then, according to an ESPN article, John Thorne, who is Major League Baseball's official historian, he actually chaired a 17-person committee that included Negro League experts and statisticians. One of the things to keep in mind here, too, is when you talk about the Hall of Fame and, you know, the plaques that's associated. I mean, one of my questions was, what's going to happen to that? The plaques with all the statistics and everything. And there's an indication here that those plaques would remain the same because they reflect the information available at the time of players' induction. Again, that's according to ESPN. One other thing here, too, to note, Thorne estimated 72% of Negro League's records from 1920 to 1948 are included, and said additional research might lead to future modifications. Thorne said a 4-homer game by Gibson in 1938 and a home run by Mays in August 1948 could not be included because complete game accounts have not been found. So there's going to be some future changes here, but man, you talking about 4-homer game? Kudos to Major League Baseball for righting the wrong. Even though it took a while, they still right the wrong here. But man, my mind kind of races to, man, what's going to happen? I would love to see like a Josh Gibson card of some sort. You know what I'm saying? Like with the new stats.
Yep.
And all that. So those are the type of things that I would love to see a trading card company actually, you know, really go ahead and do. This is a series on righting the wrong.
Thank you for joining us at Back Porch Talk Podcast. You can also join us on Twitter by tweeting us at @back_podcast. For more information, you can go to our website, which is backporchtalkpodcast.com. You can also email us at backporchtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Again, thank you for joining us, and remember that there's enough hate in the world, so go ahead and spread a little love.